Hello.
Hello, Tina.
Hello.
And joining us now via phone from Vermont is Tina. Tina, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Tom?
I'm great. Thanks so much for taking the time joining us. And you have a haunted college experience. Could you start by telling us where you went to college, what year it was?
Yes, I went to college at Keene State College in New Hampshire between 2002 and 2006.
How did you end up at Keene State, if I might ask?
I went to Keene State because they have a great education program, and I knew I wanted to be a teacher, and it wasn't too far from home, and it was a nice New England town, and it was affordable. So that's why I went there.
Sounds perfect. Now, it's known as one of the most haunted colleges in the U.S. Were you aware of any of that at the time when you're going on tours there or when you first freshman year show up? Was that ever discussed or talked about?
I did not know about the fact that it was known as a haunted campus until I think my freshman year is when I started hearing about it. I knew it was an old school, it had a lot of older buildings, but I didn't realize it was had this idea of being haunted until I went to school there.
And then the hot spot, the most haunted place, is called Huntress Hall.
Mm-hmm.
And
it is.
I believe that is where you lived for an entire year. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, I actually lived there for 2 years. I lived there my sophomore and junior year. And I lived in Fisk Hall my freshman year, which was right across from it. But I don't think Fisk was known as being haunted, but definitely Huntress had that aura about it, that it was haunted, which was a little freaky.
And the most haunted place supposedly is the attic, and you lived just below the attic, right? You were on the top floor. Could you?
I did. I lived both my sophomore and junior year. I lived on the top floor, and they even had the start of me knowing about this whole idea that it was haunted was my freshman year. They had the attic tour during Halloween time that you could go and tour the attic of Huntress Hall. And supposedly it was haunted by Harriet Huntress, who was, I guess, like a benefactor to the school. I think she was one of the, founding members. And the idea was that her old wheelchair was up in the attic. And there was this creepy old wicker wheelchair, sure enough, up there that they just left up there. And so when you went up there, you'd see it, and it was a little disconcerting. But I thought it was just kind of all in fun and just kind of a silly thing. I didn't really think too much of it.
So now, chronologically, if you can, I know you've had a lot of different things happen to you while living there. Could you just take us through as much as you remember, as much detail as you can?
Yes. So my sophomore year, the first year I lived there, I lived with my friend Nikki, and we knew about the whole idea that it was haunted, but didn't really think anything of it, like I was saying. And then one evening, it was probably like after dinner time, so it wasn't late or anything. It was just a weeknight, and we were both sitting in our room. We were each at our own desk on our computers, chatting away on instant messenger, I'm sure. And all of a sudden, I started hearing these noises above me, and I just, didn't really think too much of it. Just figured it's an old building, or maybe there was a squirrel up above us. Didn't really think too much. And then kind of started getting louder and louder. And it almost sounded like, I was trying to remember, it almost sounded like metal, like chains on a floor almost. And it kept getting louder and louder. And finally I looked back at my friend Nikki, and she looked at me and she was like, "Are you hearing that?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's really weird." And, then we both kind of were really quiet and started listening more, and it just got louder and louder. And I finally freaked out, and I jumped up onto my bed and very uncharacteristically for me, decided to knock on the ceiling. And my roommate looked at me like, "What are you doing? This is ridiculous." But I went for it. I knocked, a couple times on the ceiling. And sure enough, there were these two loud bangs, like boom, boom, right after I knocked on the ceiling. And it was like the scariest moment. We both jumped up, we freaked out, we, jumped into each other's arms, we ran into the closet, ran out the door, ran into our friend's room that lived next door. And we're, as only two college girls can get, screaming and going crazy. And we're like, "Did you hear that? Did you hear all that noise?" And they're like, "No, what are you talking about?" And then we even went and got our RA, and we were like, is there someone up in the attic doing work? Is there like a maintenance crew up there or a custodian? And they said not that they knew of, and they even took us to the doors, the attic, to check to see if maybe someone was fooling around up there. Maybe some other kids were up there, and they were locked completely. So it was a little bit scary. It was definitely the couple weeks after that. I remember being really freaked out, and just kind of every little noise that I heard, thinking, what is that? And nothing, was as extreme as the knocking. That was really intense and loud. And I wasn't alone. I wasn't crazy. I had my friend there, and she heard it too. So that was my haunted experience in my room.
That is definitely crazy, and it was very clearly like a knock in response to you knocking on the ceiling.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it wasn't like any kind of echo or anything like that. It was, because I had more of a quiet knock, and this was like I can hear it right now, instantly remember it, 2 loud bangs on the ceiling above us, right above where I had knocked. And it was just like, just total mayhem after that. So we both jumped up and were so freaked out. It was scary. It was really scary.
And then I also remember you mentioning something to me about like something flying off your desk at one point.
Yeah, that was weird. So I remember the whole kind of year after that, I was kind of on like alert, but I was like, okay, what is that? Because it really jarred us. And one time I was walking down the hall, and, a lot of people would leave their doors open, and 2 of my good friends had their door open, and I'm, walking past them after going to the bathroom or something, and I hear them scream, and I, run in there. I'm like, what's going on? And they had this little, like, kind of board set up between their 2 desks, resting on their desk for their printer to sit on, and they said that they were both sitting there, and they both saw it fly up and off of the desk, like not like tip over, but completely fly up, fling the printer over. There was, I saw it. There was paper everywhere. The printer was, kind of all scattered around the floor. And that was really bizarre, and that freaked them out a lot. And then I remember, and this happened more than once, being in the bathroom alone and the faucet's turning on and off. And that was like, I remember it so clearly. I was taking a shower, and I remember coming out and being like, what, that's weird. The faucet's on, thinking someone left it on. And then sure enough, it turned off and then turned back on. And I just was like, okay, this is ridiculous. And somehow I lived there another year. I'm not sure how that happened, but I did. But those were the scariest things, those, 3 distinct things. And then we would hear stuff above us in the attic. And I can just remember lying there and being like, okay, that's nothing. It's nothing. That's just weird sound. It's an old building, but it was scary.
Now, I have a question regarding the faucets.
Yes.
Was it the kind of thing where it was off and you left the room and you came back and it was on, and then you shut it off and then you came back later and it was on again? Or did you actually witness the water
I actually saw the water shutting off and coming back on.
And did the faucet turn simultaneously?
I was trying to remember. I can't remember that. You would think that you would, I don't think so. I don't think I saw the actual faucet turn. I just saw the water run. Like when I remember I was, came out of the shower and the water was running, and I just thought someone left it on, and then it turned off. And then it came back on. But I don't remember seeing the faucet handles turn. But I don't know if I'm just not remembering, or if I was just so freaked out that I wasn't really paying attention. And then other people would say the same thing, that they noticed that the faucets would, sometimes either be left on, and they just assumed the same thing, that other people left them on. But after me seeing that, I was like, I don't know, I think there's something else going on in there. And it was weird. It was definitely strange.
And those are like the faucets you turn, like you said. It's not like an automatic one with like a motion sensor or anything like that.
No. This building was not outfitted with those types of modern things. No, it was old school faucets, yeah.
And you touched upon this. It seems like it was pretty common for all the students living there to have their own experiences all the time almost, right?
Yeah, definitely. People would hear things. And before the whole experience with the knocking, I just thought, people were just, getting themselves all excited, being dramatic. It's an old building, and I'm sure most of it was just strange noises from the building. But after seeing, after the knocking especially, and then those other things, I was like, okay, maybe there really is more to this, and maybe there's a reason why there's this kind of rumor that this building is haunted.
And did you ever feel like afraid or scared if you were by yourself at night in your room or trying to sleep?
Definitely, yes, especially right after the knocking incident. I can very much remember, because I'm already a light sleeper, I'm kind of a night owl, and so I would, my roommate would either be fast asleep before me, or if she wasn't there for a weekend or something and I was on my own, I was definitely freaked out. I think I even remember right after it happening, I think I slept in my room, my friend's room, on the floor, because I was like, when my roommate wasn't there, because I was like, I am not staying in there alone. But then, you just get used to it, and life goes on, and you're not as scared anymore. But
and it was all, it sounds like it was all pretty harmless stuff. It was never like intimidating people or scaring anybody. It was just more these small little things, noises,
just
things
these
moving.
Kind of small little strange noises. Never saw anything besides the faucet. Never saw, ghost or anything like that. But it was definitely weird. And then I think there were other stories on campus, other parts of the campus, but I don't really remember those. I wasn't really paying attention as much to that. But just Huntress Hall was the big one that had all the scary stories.
So before you lived in Huntress Hall, did you believe in ghosts?
That's a good question. I don't think I was always open to the possibility of it. I don't think I was like, oh yeah, I totally believe in ghosts, and that's for sure. I thought a lot of it was just more, people getting dramatic and wanting to buy into it. But I never was like, oh, it's definitely not a possibility. I thought it could happen. Both my parents had ghost experiences that they used to love telling me their stories. And it's funny because my mother, when she went to college at Frostburg State University in Maryland, she had a similar experience with a knocking thing that I had in her a house that she lived in, a really old house that was built at the turn of the century, and she had a knocking experience on the wall. And so that was kind of strange that we both had that knocking experience. And so I was always open to it, especially after hearing their stories and other people's stories. But after that, I think I'm more of a believer that anything is possible. I don't know if I believe in ghosts, and the whole idea of someone being trapped, but definitely that it's possible to have things happen that with someone that's not actually there. So I don't know. It's strange.
It is definitely strange. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and for sharing your story with us. We appreciate it.
You are very welcome.